Here's a question. How influential have game reviews become when deciding what to buy? So, game reviews. How controlling are they? What parts of them influence what you buy in the game market? So before, you had to rely on game box art. That was the only thing you had, and maybe the description on the back. And you hoped for the best that the game was good and playable. So you often ended up with not so great games. So an example from my own collection is Dino Wars, which is an awesome box art. You have a robot shooting a dinosaur in space, but the game isn't that great. As you can see, it's pretty average, and you control a giant clunky robot through basic levels. So, I mean, not great, but that's what you got. Next step was word of mouth. You hear your friends say, "Oh my god, you have to buy this game. It's like the most amazing thing. If you don't buy it, you are the biggest loser in the world." You often went with their decision. Some games would go below the radar because of that, though. Say, Final Fantasy VII came out, but then you had Wild Arms. Wild Arms came out at the same time, but not many people heard of that game because Final Fantasy VII was so huge. But now we're in the review age, where if a game is below like 80%, something must be wrong with it. And also, we're getting better at making good games. Like recently, Last of Us and BioShock Infinite just took all of the awards for like best game, best graphics, what have you, best story. I looked at some of my old favorite games, but I was crushed when I learned that Legend of Dragoon was only 77 out of 100, which today is not too great if the average is about like 80. I do follow review scores sometimes. I know it's really bad to do that, but randomly I will go out on a whim and buy certain games like Nier that got 6 out of 10, which is not great because it's not that great of a game, but it has a great story, especially if you go into it interested and you research the shit out of it, like I did. A lot of games are being overlooked due to lower review numbers, and while there are fans who will buy anything of whatever genre they like, or whatever game series they like, there's still a lot that go missing and just are never heard of until way later, or just never at all. An example is Suikoden 1 and 2, that are really good games, but no one ever picked them up. And now you see Suikoden 2 as an average at about like $200 on eBay or Amazon or something like that. There's still a big problem with number hunting for games for the best reviews or a certain average that the player has set for themselves. More often than most, I buy games on a whim, especially with Steam when things are just really cheap. And sometimes I buy games that I know that are going to be bad, but I know I'll enjoy them because they're so bad. I enjoy them for all the wrong reasons, but the middle games, the ones that aren't super shit, and the ones that aren't absolute amazing tier games, often get ignored the most, but sometimes have great stories or some sort of great battle system that just gets overlooked and no one will know about it. It's kind of like movies. You love the shit ones because they're so shit. Like Sharknado. And, what is it, Desert Sharks, or something like that? I know too many. A lot of Nicolas Cage movies end up being kind of crap. There are some good ones, but not really, because he just goes for anything that he wants. But then you like the great movies as well, and then the okay movies you kind of ignore because you're like, I'm not going to enjoy it because it's crap, or I'm not going to enjoy it because it's not amazing, so I'm just going to not even touch it. That's a huge problem too, and that's the exact same thing that happens to games. Now there's the issue of money, because back in the day, one game came out like every month, so you had tons of money to save, tons of time to save up and get that game. But now there's games coming out like every freaking day. Like recently on like May 20th or something, Drakengard 3 came out, Transistor came out, the people who did Bastion, and what else? Something else came out, and it's like, holy shit, overload. Like you have to prioritize which one you get. And reviews help that because they want to put your money to good use, but you might miss out on certain games because of that. And one last big problem I have, not with just review hunting and review number hunting and stuff like that, is the retro reviews that are done like 10 years after the game has been released. Reviews old games, sure, it's fun to go back and look at these games, but there's so many problems I see where things like so frustrating. You have to correct your mindset when approaching them. Yes, there's terrible graphics, but you have to understand that during that time, these graphics were amazing. I mean, we look back at Final Fantasy VII, and we're like, oh, that was such a good game, but have you seen Cloud's hoof hands? Like, they're not accurate. But yeah, so, I mean, you have to go in with the right mindset and view it alone. No comparisons. Like, yes, Final Fantasy VII came out same time as Wild Arms. You can see the difference and the budget between both of them, but they both have their own little charm to it. So, like, you can't compare it when they're completely different games. Yes, they might be RPGs, but that's about the only thing that's connecting them. I really don't find retro reviews very accurate at all, and then when they get put into the huge system of reviews, and there's a bunch of shit ones, you're gonna say that game is shit. But it's really not. Like, at the time, it was great. But then this asshole comes along and says, oh, it's so shit because the graphics weren't good, and Final Fantasy VII came out at the same time, so it should have been like that. It's like, no, it can't be like that all the time. So, like, calm your tits. So I'm gonna leave you with the question, how influential are game reviews for you? As promised, I was going to reply to all of the previous comments from the Complex or Simple Games Game Talk. So the first comment is by Acrodox. I am sorry if I butchered your name. Where they talk about how uniqueness in a game is one of the more important things. And I quite agree to that, because having the same game over and over again, like playing Age of Empires 1 and then playing Age of Empires 2, same thing, maybe a few improvements, but uniqueness kind of captures the whole kind of game pull there. And I agree with that, and I usually go for more unique games if I can. Ignace makes a good comment saying, I think a game can only be as complex as you try to make it. So if you're super interested in a game, you'll learn a lot more, and you'll do all the side quests and everything possible to do and finish the game. And even in complex games, you can still stick to very basic tactics. An example I would give would be Deus Ex Human Revolution, where you can be stealthy, which is a lot harder, or you can just be an asshole and shoot everybody, like I do, because I'm really shit at stealth games. So that is also a very good point, where you can have flexibility between simple and complex games. Veratic Wars gives a really good comment saying that we need both simple games and complex games, because you start with the simple and then you build to be more complex. Without checkers, I would probably not have become interested in chess. So a lot of like introductory RPG games is like Pokemon and might be the gateway to more games. Eloise says that gaming is depending on mood and schedule, which is completely understandable. Sometimes you have time for games, sometimes you don't. And they state that setting is more important than pretty much everything. Having a good world, having a good setup like that, it really helps the game become more complex. You could have simple characters, but if the world is complex, you can kind of weave into the characters how complex they can be through the setting. And I find that very interesting. And the last comment, Silent Hill 1 is the best. It probably is, but I only have the memories of me being a 9-year-old watching this game and absolutely shitting my pants. So, that's probably why I don't like it so much. And, I don't know, I just prefer 2. So, thank you for watching, and if you have any comments, I will be sure to address them in the next Game Talk video. I really should change the names of things.